are on yet, but we are live. We're streaming to Facebook, and we also are streaming to YouTube, our YouTube channel. So for everyone that may be watching now, I'm not quite sure if you're on now because I can't see from here. But I have the distinct pleasure of being with two of the most amazing women that I know. They're not only my friends, but they kick butt in their industry. I'm telling you, they are phenomenal. And most of you may be familiar with them. First, I want to introduce Shanda Battle Waters. Shanda is an educator. She's a seasoned educator. She's been in administration. I'm gonna let her talk about her background, but she comes to us from NC, the Public School Forum of NC, and she is a program coordinator that deals with resilience and ACEs, and she's gonna talk about that more. She'll do a better job than I will. And next we have Keisha Pruden. Keisha Pruden, as most of us in our local community may know, Keisha is a psychotherapist, counselor, and she's been in the area for a very long time, helping people deal with some of the most horrendous situations to some of the not so horrendous. But Keisha is here with us today as well. So I am going to let them formally introduce themselves, but we are here talking about our youth, our children, as it relates to trauma and stress and what COVID-19 may be putting upon them as far as stressors. And even we're going to talk about a little bit about loss as well. So we don't have a lot of time, but we're going to try to squeeze all of that into this little bit of time that we're here together. So ladies, I'm going to let you go first. I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself. Shanda, I'll let you go first. This is kind of give us your background.
Yeah, well, thank you, Angie, for that awesome introduction. Angie knows I don't like to talk about myself, but for the purpose and the sake of what we're doing today, I think it is important that I do share that I have been in education in Eastern North Carolina for the past 18 years. I started off at Hertford County High School as a lateral entry teacher and loved it so much that I pursued a master's in education and then a master's in school administration. My last school position was as principal of Northampton County High School. Did that for 4 years, and then I found myself in this role with the Public School Forum, and I love it because I'm able to work in Eastern North Carolina. I'm the program coordinator for the eastern end of the state, and basically what I get to do is to go into schools in districts such as Bertie, Halifax, Edgecombe, Pitt, Nash, and Perquimans, Pasquotank, all those great counties that we're all familiar with, and help those principals and those staffs become trauma-sensitive environments, really learning how to work with our kiddos and some of the things that they may be bringing into school. We get a bad rap in the East for having rural schools that are low performing. And so what people have got to understand is our kids aren't low performing because they want to be. It's because there's a lot going on that we've got to get to before we can give them the academic content. So I love my job and I'm happy to be here with you guys today.
Yay. Thank you, Shanda. Awesome. That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff. Ms. Pruden.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Keisha Pruden, and as Angie alluded to earlier, I have been a therapist for a while, going on 20 years now, most of my time here in Eastern North Carolina. And in that time, I've been able to work with, I think, just about every population from a birth to 5 all the way up to the geriatric population with mental health and substance abuse. But as it relates to our subject today, I'm a certified child parent psychotherapist. And so having that certification and that work experience has allowed me to assess and work with children and parent dyads of dynamics of people that have experienced trauma. And so as we're going through this time now, I do reflect on those days of working with my moms and my babies and my, toddlers that had experienced traumatic times, and being able to, help them rise above those experiences and go on to, to be happy and productive and to heal. So I'm so thankful that you are giving us this forum today to discuss ways that we can help our babies to, to recover from any trauma that they have experienced during this time. Thank you so much.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much. So, those that you're listening right now, you hear what these ladies, their experience, their background, and what we're going to be talking about. And I don't know if I actually put that caption on this stream. It's a new platform. I like it. It's pretty cool, but I don't know if I put that on there. But I do want you to share this video so that others may be able to be impacted and take this information with them, so that, look, we together can help our youth. We together can help our children navigate these times that we're in. We tend to think that they're not impacted like we're impacted, but however, they probably internalize it different, and I'm sure it probably impacts them more. So with that being said, I want to kind of jump back before we get too deep in. Shanda, you talked about working with students in schools and how they're dealing with trauma and how that impacts them, the work that you're doing. Can you talk a little bit more in detail about this word that we hear, ACEs, and we talk here about resiliency and that type of, there's a lot of buzzwords now in the field. And so, and it's more prevalent now than ever. So can you talk about what that means from your context?
Absolutely. So ACEs is the short form word for adverse childhood experiences. And originally, when the study was done on ACEs, there were 10 ACEs that included things like physical abuse, neglect, emotional abuse, divorce, substance abuse, all of these things, right? But it has expanded over the years to include things such as poverty, bullying, racism, even being in low income housing and your environment that you are in or raised in can be considered an adverse childhood experience. And so when we're talking about those things, the gist is the more of those adverse experiences that you have as a child, it plays on your emotional development and growth, right? But also the way in which you handle stress. And it also affects the way that you're triggered in certain situations or around certain people. And there's a whole big science to it. But to keep it short and simple, when you have all of those experiences, it changes who you are and how you interact with the world around you. And it doesn't really change you for the better unless you have some support systems built in around you, whether that's a caring adult, and that's where we get to the term resilience, right?
Okay.
Try to create resilience for people who have experienced trauma by providing supports around them. So one of those things that we talk to teachers a lot about is even though that child may not be in present danger or experiencing the trauma at that time, certain triggers can send them back into that fight, flight, or freeze, or we even have now submit response. And that's sometimes those behaviors that you start to get from children that are defiant, that refuse to do work, children who find negative coping things, such as the kids who always fight, the kids who do drugs, those kids who may be promiscuous. So those are the kinds of things that you want to start to think about when you look at students with behaviors or kids with behaviors or adults with behaviors for that matter. A lot of that was ingrained by some of those experiences we had as children and never really learned healthy ways to cope.
That's good. That is good. Thank you for sharing that. Keisha,
Yes.
from your profession and from your experiences, can you talk about what that looks like from your context when you're having to work with kids from a counselor standpoint? How does that impact them, coming out of these various backgrounds and then them having to compress how they see life through that lens? How does that impact them?
So to piggyback on what Shanda was talking about, is definitely what you're going to see is the way I explain it to people is usually a polarizing difference. So if, for example, if you have a child that's rambunctious, that's energetic, that's friendly, and they start experiencing these adverse childhood experiences, then they begin to behave in the polar opposite. They may start to withdraw. They may start to, not be social, just be sullen, that type of thing. By the same token, if you have a child that's usually shy, doesn't really socialize with people, and then they start experiencing these ACEs, then you may start seeing the acting out, being rambunctious, really active, maybe bullying people, fighting. The child that we know that's really bright, that's really smart, may start not completing work, refusing to do work, seemingly doesn't no longer understands how to do the work. So when I encounter my clients, what has usually happened usually is referrals. I've gotten, referrals from the schools, from teachers, parents, have contacted me because the child can not go back to school until they get counseling, because they have threatened suicide at school. They have acted out at school, or they have done things in the home. They're fighting siblings. They may have even started maybe wetting the bed, um, hoarding food. That is something that I know Shanda could probably speak to, as far as the school situation. Children who one of the adverse childhood experiences might be is the homelessness and hunger, and so they may start hoarding food because they don't know, when they're going to
Right.
eat again, and that is seen sometimes in the academic setting as a behavior problem, but I see it more behaviorally. I see it as, okay, why is this child taking food? Is there a food deficit somewhere else? So that's one of the things that I really wanted to put out there today, especially to educators, is to, when you see a child that their behavior does a 360, you have to, one of the things you have to start looking at is there something going on? Are they experiencing, some adverse childhood experiences? Is there some emotional, physical, sexual neglect? Is there some homelessness? Is there some food deficit or, neglect? There's something going on, because, I always tell people, when I'm working with them, like, behavior doesn't just appear. It doesn't just occur out of nowhere. There is a reason for it. And sometimes we just have to start asking questions. People don't ask children questions a lot of times. When
That's a
I'm in
good point.
sessions, I'll ask adults, well, did you ask your baby? Or did you ask them? And they'll look at me and say, well, no. And then I'll say, is it all right if I ask them? And they'll say yes. And then I'll say, well, why did you do so and so? And then they'll just tell me,
Yeah.
I did it because, I was angry. And that just starts the conversation. So, those are just some things I wanted to share today.
Good, good, good. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. So, ladies, if you would, so let's go ahead and it is not even the elephant in the room, but let's go ahead and deal with COVID and how we've had to isolate and how we had to do the stay at home. Let's talk about, from your paradigms, what that has meant to children, what we may be missing possibly as parents and as teachers.
Yeah, so, go ahead, Keisha.
Well, what I first thought, and I thought about my own child. My youngest son is 16. So the first couple of weeks, very happy that school was, to be honest, that school was out. Even though, COVID was, around, we're taking our precautions, we're being very careful. Just very happy that school was out. But then as time, goes on, not just with him, but with other children, what you're starting to see is that they're feeling the effects of the schedule disruption. And I believe very wholeheartedly that adults take for granted the importance of a schedule for children. It is very important that children know what's going on, what's going to happen on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. Many times when you do have children acting out in an academic setting or in a home setting, it is because there is a disruption in the schedule. And you think about us as adults, when we don't know what's going on, we have a tendency to act out a little bit, and we'll have our adult tantrums, and children are doing the same thing. Right. So a lot of what's going on with our children now, and there are an increase in ER hospitalizations or visits, and psychiatric hospitalizations, and that is because um, children's schedules have been disrupted. There hasn't been a recalibration in the home. And I'm not saying that to judge a parent or caregiver or grandma or whomever's in charge, because many of us, aren't, just at home, sitting at home. We're working. So we have to balance work and homeschooling and discipline and cooking and cleaning, and you're doing multiple things in the same space. Whereas before you could divide out these tasks with kids not being at home. You know what I mean? You could, maybe cook, before they got home from school or football practice, or you could clean, while no one was home. But now you have to do your work. You have to go through your 100 emails. You have to, do your assessments. You have to do your, on top of your child coming and saying, can you help me with this math? And if anybody's like me, past third grade math, I can't do it. I can't help you. You're in trouble. You're going to have to Google it or something. I can't help you. So parents are struggling, and as a result, children are struggling because there's not a recalibration of the schedules, and it is a true struggle to blend everything. And so that's what I'm seeing. Parents and children both are struggling with finding that balance, and parents are really struggling with trying to be perfect with it. And I'm always saying, don't be perfect with it. Just do the best you can. Do the best you can. So that's what I'm seeing.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Shanda, talk to us.
Yeah, just to kind of add, she hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I think kids are happy at first, and I can just talk about my two, one who's graduating high school, that's 17, and then a fifth grader here. And Keisha, I'm with you. I can't do any math, fifth grade math, and the moving the blocks. And why do we need blocks? Just a calculator, right?
We don't need it.
So I don't understand it either. So, but one of the things that I can say is that schedule is so important because they thrive. Even children, especially children with trauma that have gone through trauma, thrive off of the predictable. And so whenever we are not being predictable, that kind of throws their world into chaos. And one of the things that it reminded me when Keisha was talking is those ACEs. So divorce is an ACE, right? An adverse childhood experience. And it's not something that we usually think of. It's so commonplace, right? And kids usually move through it and find their own ways to cope. And so we can make the mistake of looking at our kids now because they're happy to be out of school, because we're letting them be on the PlayStation or YouTube for hours at a time. They're content, but they are also processing the losses that they've had. And they've had loss because they haven't seen their teachers. They haven't been able to interact with their friends. They do still have those same worries and concerns that we have, but maybe they're just not, like Keisha said, maybe parents aren't asking about it. So I do invite parents to take the time, not daily, but every once in a while, to kind of talk to the kids about how they're feeling about COVID and what they're hearing on social media. We certainly don't want social media to cause panic and fear in our children. So we do, with all of the 1,000 things that we're doing, we need to make sure that we're taking the time just to check in with them about it and make sure they don't have any questions. And one thing I did hear that was really good is just be aware of leaving the TV on. At the start of it, I always watched MSNBC because I wanted to see the latest report, right? I wanted to hear from the governor of New York. I wanted to know what was the death toll, what was the number of cases in the U.S., how did we compare? And just knowing that that was going on in the house and my children being around that and hearing that, I think can cause a little bit more fear with them when we're not giving them the other side. And I know this probably, well, I can't help but plug it in here. because I know who we're doing this for. And even if I didn't know who we're doing this for, I'm going to put it in here. This is when we have to be intentional in our time at home in teaching our children about the word and
Yes.
teaching them about God. Last night we had children's Bible study, and I was really at a loss, Lord. I kept praying about what am I supposed to talk to them about, and I saw this meme that my beautician actually put on Facebook, and said, even Noah sent out a dove before he got off the ark, and she
Wow.
said, I'm not a dove. So as soon as the Lord tells me, I'll be back in the salon. But that resonated with me though, because there have been other people throughout history and in the word that have experienced, similar circumstances. So last night we talked about Noah and what it was like to be quarantined on the ark and
That's
what he had to deal with. And really, it was amazing because the little ones, they see rainbows and they don't know what the rainbow's for. So we were able to connect that back to, even though Noah went through this, how he was rewarded at the end and how God is still there. So I think as parents, we really need to use this time to get closer to God with our children. And I know that probably wasn't where you were going with it, but
no, that's great. But it's great because that was a topic that we were going to hit. So I'm glad you did go there. You just set the stage for us. So hey, perfect. Thank you for bringing that perspective in. And since we already in that door, we kind of explored a little bit more. Keisha, I had Keisha to be on a panel that we did, Shanda, at the City of Praise. I think it was back in February. And it was during a time, for me, it was really instrumental because I myself was dealing with, pain and loss and having to cope with that and put it in perspective. And, I had to see a therapist to help me just talk it through and not bury what I was feeling and experiencing. So, Keisha, can you speak to spirituality and mental health as it relates to our children, how we can best support them in that? If they're dealing with, these traumatic situations, if they're having to deal with being away from their friends, being quarantined, or, which is a quite interesting statistics, everyone knew it would happen, but the statistic has actually supported it, how domestic violence has increased in households because of being in quarantine together and kids having to watch that and see that. How can we best help our babies navigate these type of situations?
I think the best thing that we can do, the first thing that came to my mind or that was deposited in my spirit was to be honest with children. Many times children act out because they realize that the things that they were told were not the truth. So when children come and ask us questions, be honest. If you don't know the answer, it's okay to say, I don't know the answer. I'm going to try to find out for you. I'm going to see if I can, get the answer from someone else. But it's okay to say, I don't know. If you are a family of faith, it's very important that, like Shannon was doing with the Bible study, that you either start the Bible study or devotional readings or increase your spiritual time together as a family so that you can fortify your spiritual hedge of protection around your family, and explain to your children why you're doing what you're doing. Many of us were raised in an environment where it was spiritual, but many things were not explained to us.
Yeah.
We were told to do it and you did it. But I've learned, with my children that, unless it's a safety situation where I'm saying, right now you do it because I'm telling you to do it. I explain to them what I'm doing or what I want them to do and why, I want them to do it. And for those really hard, questions, why is this happening? Why did my friend get sick? Why did my friend's mom die? Why did Pop pass? Be honest and say, I do not know. When they ask, why did God allow it? Say, baby, I do not know why God allowed it, but I know that God is good and that there's a lesson in every situation. And so when you go to bed tonight and you are sad about grandma or pop or your friend's mom.
Yeah.
Ask God to, to heal your friend's heart. Ask God to give you comfort. Ask God to help you to learn the lesson that you need to learn from this experience. So, in a way, you're helping them to shift their focus from the death to the lesson, from the death to the comfort, from the death to being, to being maybe a comfort to their friend.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is unfortunately when epidemics and pandemics come, we learn that lesson of stepping outside of ourselves and learning how to be there for other people. And the word says that we go through things so that when other people go through things, that we can comfort them like we were comforted.
Yeah.
And this is being borne out as never before. We are
Yeah.
losing generations of people. And this is, the likes of which we have never experienced. And my youngest son and I were just saying that. He was like, Mama, I never thought I would live through something like this.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
I'm gonna be very honest. He's a very upbeat, outgoing guy, and always laughing and joking. And when he said it, I just looked at him and I was like, this is my cue. This is my cue to have this conversation. And I was like, tell me what you mean. And then, we just, had a conversation about how he was feeling, about living through COVID and having to wear masks and hand sanitizer and, being in the house. And so, when we talk, when I always start my conversation with "we are a family of," and then they finish it with faith, they know, the God conversation, is coming. So we're a family of faith. And so we believe, that God is good. And we believe that that his will is our will. And we're gonna rock and roll with that. We're gonna rock and roll with that till he brings us home. So those are the honest conversations that you have with your children, and then you tailor it according to how, their age. But you're always honest, and you always check in with them to see how they're feeling.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. There are a couple of things I want to throw out there. And I don't know where to go first. Since we're already in the house of faith, let me end out by saying I don't know if you guys were watching, but President Trump just right before we came on our call, he just made a loud statement saying that he's declaring that the houses of faith are essential settings. And so just like Walmart, he said houses of faith are essential. And he said that he's not demanding, but he's asking that, governors allow churches to be able to open as soon as this weekend, right? But he put it on, and then he said if governors overturn that, if governors don't comply, he was going to override that. I don't know if it's executive order or whatever, but he did put it on. He said, I know people are favoring this is mosques, synagogues, churches, etc.
Right.
He said if anybody cares for their people, they do. So we could probably put in context, maybe not everyone, but most pastors do. So he felt like that they would be able to best know how to keep people safe. And I know some churches that are kind of transitioning back into church, with different measures and stuff put in place, and there are measures in place. Talk to what you think, how that may impact children. Do you think that that's something that they really need right now? Or, I know this is a personal question. I don't want to get too political, so let's kind of stay away from the political slant of it. But, what could this mean for our children being able to go back into houses of worship at this point?
Well, we're not going back. I don't know. But what I will say is, in terms of the children, I think that this has been, and I know we probably have this conversation privately amongst ourselves, but not out loud, but this pandemic has kind of reset, has been a reset for families of faith, like Keisha said, and households who love God. I think using social media, I think prior to this, our children didn't use social media to interact with God, to spread the word, to learn more about Him. And every night when I'm on Instagram, Israel Houghton's having a party, praise and worship session, Jamal Bryant, John P. Key, everybody is sharing in a way that we've never shared. We're loving on the Lord in a way that we've never done before. Our children can, some of them, like Keisha said, don't know the why of what we do, but are starting to feel it and starting to understand, okay, there's something to this, and starting to ask the questions. And you guys know, just like I know, growing up in grandma's house, we didn't know why she had that radio on first thing every Sunday morning while she was cooking, but we heard them sermons on the AM station. We heard her singing. We started to feel it. We started to connect. And then we started to ask our questions and listen a little bit more when we went to church with her. And I think that's what's going to happen when we eventually get back in church. Our kids are going to want to be there. Our kids are going to ask more questions. They may want to be involved. But I think right now we shouldn't rush it. I think this has been transformational, that you can pick up the Lord. You can at any time and talk to Him and engage with other believers. But this has just catapulted that into something totally different. And I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying being able to get on with you guys. And we couldn't have set this up. If we were on our regular work schedule, we may have thought about it and said, oh, yeah, that would be a great idea. And we would be a year later saying, y'all, when are we going to get together to do this? And so I think it has been a reset. It's been a reset for me as a mother to be able to focus on what's important. Keisha brought up football practice earlier in one of her examples. That was my life, running my kids from this practice to that practice, the homework, the food, okay, and church on Sunday, Bible study on Wednesday night. It was something that we did. Now that it has to be more intentional, it kind of has transformed, the priorities for the household, and for me as a mom. So I think we should not rush back into it. And I don't think that our kids are going to go lacking because we do. They might veer away from it because we're like, okay, it's 9:00, it's Sunday morning, get up, get dressed, come on. And then it's here we go again, right? Yeah. Because we've made it a thing on the list that we do on Sunday.
Oh, shoot. You still here?
There she is.
There she is.
There's Keisha.
Everybody's there. Hey, hello. Internet disruption. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? Okay, cool. We're still live. So okay. you were ending out about how it's the time hasn't really been all bad in essence.
In that sense, yes. Yeah. It's been devastating. Please don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying for the reconnect to God and to priorities and to what we need to be teaching our children and sharing with them.
Good. Keisha, can you speak to us on that?
What's in my spirit is, the church is not the building, the church is the people. So those pastors that have been very innovative, I applaud them, from people worshiping in parking lots to the streaming to the more rural situations, the phone calls, people are getting fed. People, are still, hearing the word, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know when some states opened up a couple of weeks ago, opening some churches, some families became ill. So the churches closed back up. So we have faith, and we also have common sense and free will. So, yes. And God blessed us with all of that. So just like he gave us wisdom, and he gave, scientists knowledge. So you can blend all of it. I believe you can blend all of it and just say, Lord, give us the discernment to know what it is we need to follow and to govern ourselves accordingly. And I don't think that God will hold it against anyone if they decide to keep their families home for the foreseeable future, especially if, there's no available vaccine right now. Churches are still, viable entities. People are still being led to Christ. People are still having Bible studies.
Yeah.
People, are still attending church. It's just online. The church is not the building.
Okay, so that's definitely good. Thank you, ladies, for sharing on that perspective. I thought that was quite interesting that will break right as we're talking about just our children and their well being, their mental health, and etc. So I do want to, Shanda, if you could take it to the schoolhouse for me. Uh, let's talk about what this may look like on the other side of COVID. For us, for our kids, and what school may look like on the other side of COVID. If you don't mind sharing about that.
Sure. So hopefully, well, maybe not. There's been a lot of change in the government in terms of funding and budgeting, and so schools. Here, we'll start with the schedule. So schools have been given the option. Public schools have been given the option of opening early
Okay.
than the scheduled end of August. So opening a week early to kind of get back into school and get back in the swing of things. What I can say for the eastern part of the state and the districts that I'm working in, a lot that we're hearing is on this AB day in which they may divide students and not have everybody in the school building to maintain that social distancing. The desks 6 feet apart, and to allow for them to be able to clean and sanitize. So some of the things that schools are thinking about are bus routes, and how can you put kids on a bus while maintaining social distancing, right? So that takes your normal bus size of where you could fit a whole lot of kids down to maybe 20 kids on a bus. So things like that could impede or cause more angst for kids. Longer bus routes, longer school days, those kinds of things. But one of the good things is the government for North Carolina, I believe it's $95 million will be put for the governor's education relief effort. Which is awesome. So we're excited about that. And there's flexibility on how to use that. But what we really need to think about with kids and returning to schools, and what we're working with a lot of schools on right now, is just how do you get back to normal? A lot of social emotional learning has to take place. You have to give kids an opportunity to learn how to express themselves. You'd be surprised how many kids, and I know Keisha knows this, how many kids don't know feeling words or can't articulate feeling words. So before we can even start asking them, how do you feel? We've got to start letting them identify what feelings there are to have, what that might look like and feel like, and then giving them the outlet to express that via maybe morning meetings, brain breaks during the day, because their anxiety levels will be up. The one thing that we're not talking about, and that people are scared to say, and it's true, we all know it as people of color, in Eastern North Carolina, a lot of people we see a lot of people who live in poverty, or maybe not in poverty, but lack of resources. So internet and those kinds of things. And those kids have really missed out here on this remote learning that's been taking place. So some of our babies are going to go back to school with huge gaps. And so parents have to just be prepared to advocate for your children. I would not let anybody fail my child the first reporting period of the school year, because I want to know, and I say this honestly, I'd want to know, what have you done to bridge the gap from the previous year to what they're learning this year. So we're really going to have to step up as parents and kind of not wait for that report card to come, but kind of monitor what's going on and how our children are adjusting, because that academic piece is going to be a concern when we return. But really, for all kids, just how do you live with what's happening? And one other thing I just want to throw in there, that we really need to be thinking about now, and this applies to the adults in the household too, is taking care of our teachers and that self-care piece, and what can we do to give them support and build resilience, because the same things that kids are dealing with at home, adults are dealing with too, on top of worrying about their students. So as adults, we need to make sure we practice self-care. We're all moms up here, and I know you don't have to raise your hand, but I will be the first to admit I have snapped on my children many a times over the last 2 months, not intentionally.
Right.
Okay, good. I don't feel bad. Not intentionally, but because like Keisha said,
Up.
yeah, I know, right?
Just let us stay up.
This is my office, but this is also where everybody watches TV. This is where I relax. This is where you want to play. This is how you got to get to and from the kitchen. It's all of that. And we have to figure out how to take time for ourselves to do something that brings us joy, and that we can decompress. And I know Keisha and I really haven't gone into it, but really calm our stress response system. Whether you know it or not, these kinds of things trigger something in your body. Just like stress causes weight gain, right? Or
Right.
acne in some
Yeah.
women, a bad mood. Stress does a lot inside of your body, and you have to figure out how to calm that stress before it has some kind of negative impacts on you and or your household. So we need to support teachers and ourselves in making sure that as adults we're taken care of.
You really hit a something great there, Shanda, and I want us to be able to talk about it as we're ending out. But if you ladies could just give some strategies that parents can use to help out our children in the next few months and days, whether it be transitioning back into life, whether it be like how to cope in the here and the now with everything, but just some coping strategies. If you could just list a few, some of the top things that you think are most important in this season.
If you have not like started having conversations with your kids, have honest conversations with honest age appropriate conversations with your kids about COVID, what it is, why we're being safe and wearing masks, what it means if they've had loss around them or friends, relatives. Have that conversation. Google, believe it or not, Google and Facebook have wonderful resources. Social stories. Social stories are normally for children with autism to teach them different ways to behave in certain situations, but they can really apply for children. And I know I have a Facebook page, Our Journey on the Spectrum, which gives resources for families and caregivers and other interested parties dealing with autism. But there's social stories up there about COVID that anyone can go up there and access to teach children about COVID. Also, you can hit up Amazon for a feelings chart, which I use in my office with kids and adults. And it helps children and adults identify what they're feeling. Because usually anger is the surface feeling, but then there are all these other feelings that are the true feelings. So to help them get into the habit of being able to identify and verbalize feelings, and that's something that you can do. If you haven't already started a schedule, just take the next week, look at your family's life, and then develop a schedule for you and for your kids. And if there's a lot of acne now or a lot of kind of stress related behavior, a schedule will really calm that down. A schedule will really calm that down. And I just want to throw that in, especially for special needs parents. The next tip is to gather your village, identify people in your household, in your school system, in your family, even with social distancing, that can be helpful with your special needs child, whether it's autism or some other developmental disability, and utilize the resources. And then start and whenever our kids are going to go back to school, start talking about that transition early, especially with our children with autism, because they have problems with transition. So start talking early about what that's going to look like and how they might be feeling and how the changes in school might be, but how they are going to be okay and how they have supports and how they They can talk with you about anything. And my last thing is, as parents, if we are experiencing stress or trauma, if we're sad or we're anxious, it's okay to tell your child, I am sad, I am anxious, because our children need to know, and we need to model for them that it's okay to have feelings, it's okay to work through them, and it's okay to recover and to be resilient. Resiliency can be modeled for children.
That's good.
Because all of our their the behavior for them is modeled by us anyway.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna model the not so good stuff, we can model the positive stuff as well.
That's good. That's good. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you. Thank you. Shanda, talk to us.
Well, she named a whole bunch of good ones. I guess the only thing that I would add is um, definitely the schedule piece. You can see a change in your child if you're not monitoring that schedule or creating that schedule. And make sure that in that schedule, you're adding all of the things that will enrich them, such as time for reading, quiet time with you, maybe. Or one of the things that really works for kids who are hyperstimulated is a mind break or brain break. There is a website called Mind Yeti, MindYeti, or you can just Google or use Yahoo. The internet's awesome. And you can just turn it on and let your child have 5 minutes of meditation. You can sit through it with them. I usually do it as well because I just enjoy it. But giving them that time, if you say, I need 5 minutes alone, I need you guys to go in your room, 5 minutes, mommy needs 5, they probably need 5 minutes too. So giving them that opportunity, there's a whole bunch of apps like the Calm app. There's a ton of them. So giving yourself and your child mindful breaks. And then, like Keisha was saying, being able to have conversations after that. If they're in the, and I know Amara loves YouTube too. Carson's on YouTube and can do it all day and night if I let him. But breaking that up for them, sometimes that overstimulation is a coping mechanism or coping strategy that they're using when they really need mommy or some conversation around sharing feelings. And I love that Keisha was talking about kids with special needs. I really just, I know this isn't a coping strategy. Well, it may be as we return to school. But as I said, don't let them fail your child when they get back. I'd really advocate hard. Also, don't let people put your child in a box. Everybody, kids that were acting out before may act out more now just because they're dysregulated. Be an advocate for your child. Don't let them, say, oh, your child needs to be tested for this or tested for that. No, my child needs some supports. So what kind of supports can you give them? And in the school building, those coping strategies can look like suggesting a safe person to talk to. If that child has a quiet space, as Keisha mentioned, with children with autism, but it works with all children. If they have manipulatives, you can get them on Amazon fairly cheaply. The small things, squishy balls, stress balls, the things we call mindfulness jars, those kind of lava lamp things. All of those things help to reset the nervous system and bring us back down to a place of calm where we can then be successful in whatever the task is. So just remember to advocate. And I really encourage from the school side, parents read with your children all summer. No matter how good we may be at being the teacher and the parent, there are going to be some gaps, and those gaps can cause trauma for kids who were already feeling like they didn't fit in the school setting in the first place. So just support them the best way that you can. Use the internet and don't be afraid to reach out for help. We're all here. Everybody's just a click away on some social media platform.
Good, good. Thank you, Shanda. Thank you for sharing that. Ladies, the time has been phenomenal, and I thank you for just the dialogue and the conversation and providing others with just insight on how to help our babies out in this season and just the awareness. I mean, some of this may be just, people may have been somewhat oblivious to it just because either they may not have young children or just may not know just like really the impact of what kids that are going through right now are experiencing. So thank you for sharing your insights. Thank you for sharing those amazing strategies. I'm definitely going to be using some of them because I'm going to need some of those strategies. So thank you for sharing those. And I'm glad to have y'all on speed dial, because if I forget what you said, of course I can look back at this, but it's just so much easier just to reach out to you.
Of
But
course.
but you are amazing, and I'm just grateful for the time that you've taken with us. In close, I think I shared on my page today. One of the local high schools or early colleges posted. It was Bertie County Early College or Bertie High School Early College. I can't remember how they put it, but they had a cool big old sign that they made, and it said. And I can't remember verbatim how they put it, but these were the graduates that were quarantined.
Mhm.
That was powerful to me. That was powerful to me. So we are in this season where this was the first grade year that my child was quarantined. This was your child. I think your son is a senior or a junior, Shanda.
He's a senior. He graduates in 2 weeks. Yep.
He was the senior that was quarantined, and yours is a junior, right, Moo?
Yeah, Moo is a junior. Yeah.
This junior year, he was quarantined. So this quarantine has really it hasn't affected some, it's affected everybody. No one has been exempt of the impact across the globe of this thing. And so, I think it's phenomenal that you two women have the opportunity to speak out on that in this season, where this video will be stored on this page for however long time about it in this season. So that's monumental in itself. So thank you for what you do every day. Thank you for what you're doing for teachers, Shanda, for principals and school districts and children every day. We applaud you as an educator, and you were a phenomenal principal when you were a principal. Just thank you for your heart and love for children. Keisha, thank you for being a lifesaver to those kids that may feel like they had nowhere to go, no one to talk to, nowhere to turn. You ladies, you all are probably underappreciated. We couldn't probably pay you enough for your impact on our kids. So God bless you. I pray God's lead upon you. I so appreciate your time. I have learned a lot, and I have a lot that I could take and apply to my kids. And I also have a lot that we could take and apply to the kids at our church and in our ministries. And so kudos and God bless, you for that. Any last words that you want to share before we log off of here?
What keeps coming to my mind is just, I think, for both sides, parents, children, teachers, adults and children, just grace and mercy. Just remember on both sides just to have grace and mercy. It's been a rough time for everybody. So do the best you can during the summer. And then when we get back together in the fall, that's what everybody's going to remember. It's, as my grandma used to say, it's going to be a tough road to hoe.
Yeah.
But we're going to work together.
Yeah.
We're going to develop, wrap around, services.
Yeah.
Because the state of North Carolina has allotted millions of dollars for school counselors and psychologists. So prayerfully, we're going to hire a whole bunch of school counselors and psychologists.
Yes.
And put them in, strategic places where they're needed. And we're just going to be slow and steady and get back to as normal a place as we can. But like Shannon said, we're just going to advocate. The parents are going to advocate. The teachers are going to advocate. And that makes my heart, feel good as an autism advocate and consultant. Yep. I'm just excited. I'm excited to, hit the ground running and just work with administrators and parents to work together to make sure our babies are okay. So we're just going to give each other some grace and mercy. So a little bit of accountability, and we're going to get it done.
Thank you. Shanda, anything you want to add?
Yeah, that was perfect. I just want to say thank you, ladies, for doing this. This was awesome. And Angie, I think it's easy to see the joy on our kids' faces because they're not in school. But as you said, this is impacting everybody.
Yeah.
So they may not be crying and yelling and screaming now, but please know their worlds have been interrupted. And so it's going to take all of us to support them and advocate for them. And thank you for reminding me of Grace, Keisha, because Lord knows you need to give it to yourself
Yeah.
often first and
Yeah.
then give it to others. So thank you for that. It's been awesome.
Yes, yes. I think, guys, we're gonna have to do this in some way, shape, form, or fashion again. I'm telling you, this has been some good stuff. Some really, really, really good stuff. So, again, thank you. So, in close, Keisha, if someone wants to get in touch with you, what do they need to do?
I'm all over social media. So I'm on Facebook, Prudent Counseling Concepts. You can always inbox me. I'm on Instagram at PC Concepts PLLC. My phone number is 1-866-200-9849. And my website is under construction, so I'm not messing with that right now, but I'm really just give me a call. I'm really right now I'm gearing up to do a lot of autism advocacy, IEP and 504 reviews, and just working with families and administrators to, bridge some gaps and get things going.
I tried to throw your thing up there real quick, but when I did it, I realized I spelled your Instagram account wrong.
It's
So we're gonna leave
okay.
it alone. We'll leave it alone.
Grace and mercy, honey. Grace and mercy.
Grace
It's okay.
and mercy. Yes,
Yes,
it's
okay.
some good stuff. Yes, we love grace and mercy. Shanda, how can they learn more about what you're doing with the state of North Carolina? Well, with the public school forum with ENC.
Yeah. So Public School Forum, we are on Twitter. We are also on Instagram and our website, www.ncpublicschoolforum.org. And my contact information is up there. We are loving to work with communities. So our partnership is with the school, but anything to make the schools what they need to be, those wraparound services. So please reach out. And if you're interested on how can we help support schools in your area, we are coming to Bertie. We just did a training with Bertie County Schools.
Yes.
So yay.
Yes.
And we have done our training in Hertford County as well,
Awesome.
working with Fairfield and Ahoskie Elementary.
Yes.
And so really want to connect. And Keisha, before we leave, I'm sorry, Angie, what district, what counties do you primarily serve in or work in or anywhere?
Hertford, Eastern North Carolina. Eastern,
Okay.
yes. So that's
Absolutely.
why I really want to, I really want to get your contact information. I really want to link up. I really think we can collaborate on some good stuff.
That would be awesome.
After we go off live, we can have some info exchange here. That'd be great. You're on Twitter, aren't you? You're on Twitter as well. Your personal educational Twitter account as well. What's that? If they want to follow you on Twitter, educator something.
It's under, but you should be able to search it under Shanda Battle. CHANDA. Last name Battle, BATTLE. It's Elevated Educator, but I think it's educator spelled with like K8R.
Something like that.
I'm on Twitter though. Yeah.
Awesome. Again, we thank you ladies. We thank you ladies so very much. And we'll be able to come back on later and just kind of talk about some extra stuff at the end. But just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Thank you for your time. It's been an amazing time. If you have more questions and you would like to connect, please do go to our Facebook page, City of Praise Fellowship. I think it's at the new City of Praise. You can find us on Facebook. I meant to stream from the church page, but I ended up streaming from our personal page, which is all cool because I'm one of the pastors there. But we'll make sure that this link is on our church page as well. But if you're just having a rough time dealing with, your children having to deal with the stressors of life, of COVID, of loss, etc., inbox us and we will be able to direct you to like Keisha, get you her information if you just can't remember who she is, or if it's something that our pastoral staff and our ministers maybe assist you with. We're here to do that. But again, thank you for tuning in. We're hoping at doing maybe 2 more of these and we'll touch on some other topics. This is Mental Health Awareness Month, folks. Make sure you don't ignore your mental health. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So we want to take care of our minds and our spirit, man, as much as we take care of our bodies. Thank you so much for your time. God bless. Love you. And we will see you soon. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking your Friday afternoons. It's Friday. Yay!